Hey guys, Mike here. So today, I'm here to talk to you about It Chapter 2. In this review, I'll be going over a brief summary of the plot, my thoughts about the movie, and whether or not you guys should go and see it. Now, normally I do try and keep my reviews as spoiler-free as possible, but for some movies where I want to talk about a bit more, I'll do a spoiler review for them. And It Chapter 2 is one of those movies where there are quite a few things that I do want to talk about. So, here's your warning, this is a spoiler review of It Chapter 2. So, if you've already seen the movie, or you don't really care about spoilers, then stick around to see what I have to say. Otherwise, go watch the movie, then come back. So, with all that, let's get started, shall we? So in It Chapter 2, it's been 27 years since the events of It Chapter 1, 27 years since the Losers Club made a vow to each other that if Pennywise ever came back, that they would all meet back in Derry and try and stop him again, for good this time. Since they made that promise to each other all those years ago, they've all moved away from town and they've all got their dream jobs, or they've just kind of moved on in general. Until that is, they get a call from their old friend Mike, who had stayed in Derry all these years, whether he couldn't move away, or whether he did stay, just to see if Pennywise came back. But regardless, he calls them all up and they all must meet back in Derry to try and stop Pennywise once and for all. And so we have It Chapter 2. I've been looking forward to It Chapter 2 for 2 years now, since I saw the first It movie back in 2017. When I went to go see it, I saw it before all the hype and everything like that, and I was pretty much only seeing it as part of, a day out of the cinema, because I was seeing 3 other films that day. So I was pretty much there just like, I'm just gonna go see another movie. Oh, a movie about a killer clown, that sounds good. And I was definitely more than happy with the movie that I'd got. The story was great. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise was great. The kids were all brilliantly cast as well, and they acted really well off each other. And they actually talked to each other like real kids, because in all these other movies, you see kids just talking to each other like saying, "Hey buddy, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'm really good." Whereas in this one, they say stuff like, "Oh, you ever shared the same toilet seat as your mum? You've probably got crabs." That's just pretty much how kids talk to each other. And though these kids are incredibly cruel to one another, you don't for a second doubt that they are the best of friends and would do anything for each other. And so now we see them 27 years later, and most of them have seemed to kind of forgot about their childhood, which at first they think's a little bit strange. They start to figure out more things about their childhood as they go on. And at first they wonder, how could I honestly forget about it? But you do have to kind of forgive them, because these things did happen 27 years ago, so it might be hard for some of them to even remember most of the things that happened in their childhood. But like I said, It Chapter 2 takes place 27 years after the first movie, so naturally, you'd have to get an older cast to play them, as they are now all in their 40s basically. And I have to say, the people they chose to play the older versions of the kids were absolutely outstanding. I mean, as we all know, James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain are both brilliant actors, and they're both really good in this as well. They, like everyone else in the movie, absolutely nail the characters, and they all manage to find their own little spin on the character as well, whilst maintaining what made the characters great in the original one, because obviously they're not going to be the same characters, because they are like 20-odd years older. But for me, the biggest standout in the entire movie was Bill Hader playing Richie, who was Finn Wolfhard's character in the first movie. Much like in It Chapter 1, he has the best lines in the entire movie. He's funny, he's charismatic, and you really do care about his character, and it was just amazing to see Bill Hader bring so much range to this character. Now, for those of you who don't know Bill Hader, or do know Bill Hader, you know that he primarily does comedy, and he is really funny, but it was just great to see him actually do some great dramatic chops in this movie. And just overall, Bill Hader was amazing. That's pretty much all I can say about him. But there was something that did disappoint me a little bit, because when I heard this cast was announced, I thought that it was Chris Pratt who was going to be playing Ben's character, but instead it was Jay Ryan. Now, I don't know who Jay Ryan is, but, he did the character really well. But I'm still kind of a little bit disappointed that we didn't get Chris Pratt in this movie, because, Chris Pratt in anything is always great. But still, Jay Ryan as Ben, really good, as were everyone else in the movie. But as well, we couldn't talk about the cast for It if we didn't talk about Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. The only thing is, I wish he was in the movie just a little bit more. Though having said that, you do feel that he is present pretty much for the entirety of the movie as well, because you don't know where he's going to pop up next. You feel like he's always behind you, and he just has this presence about him when he's either off or on screen that you just can't describe. It's just absolutely terrifying. Just overall, Bill Skarsgård, really great as Pennywise. For the scenes that he was in, he just absolutely stole the show. But something that I did think was a little bit pointless was having the character Henry come back, because in the first one, you see that he gets pushed down a well, and he's presumably dead. I mean, how the hell do you survive that 20-foot, 30-foot fall down a well when you're smacking your head off every rock? You pretty much assume he's dead. However, it turns out he did survive, and then he spent the last 27 years in an insane asylum. That is until Pennywise calls on him again to try and kill the kids or bring them to him or something like that. He doesn't really explain what he's supposed to be doing in the movie. I mean, he's only in about like 3 scenes, and collectively he's about on screen for about 10 minutes, and he didn't really serve much of the story other than just trying to kill them. It might have been better had we had more scenes with him and Pennywise, where Pennywise is manipulating him and Henry says why he wants to kill them or why he wants to serve Pennywise. Just a little bit something to give his character more relevance. But unfortunately, all we get is him escaping the asylum, trying to kill him, and then dying. You know, big whoop. Now, going into it, Chapter 2, I knew that they were going to be cutting from when they were kids to the present day when they're now adults. And at first, it was kind of a little bit jarring, but pretty much after the first time they do it, everything past that, they're really smooth transitions and they're really well done. Though at times you can tell when they're going to cut from past to present and present to past. But regardless, they were still really well done and really nice transitions. And as well, for movies that I really want to see, I'll obviously avoid all the trailers and I'll try and find out as little bit as I can about the actual movie. So, all I knew about this one was that it was 27 years later, and they were coming back to Derry to stop Pennywise. I didn't know how they were going to do it, and I didn't know whether they actually were going to do it. And I thought it was a really good idea having them search for little tokens of their past, because it gave you an opportunity to find out even more about these characters that you didn't actually know. But it's like the character said, why are we splitting up? Why are we going by ourselves? Why don't we all just stick together because we were strongest when we're together? However, in spite of that, they all go their own separate ways to try and find their tokens to bring them back together so they can perform the ritual to stop Pennywise. Now, these were really good scenes because, like I said, you find out a lot bit more about the character, but it also gives them their own opportunities to individually grow as characters and to remember what it was that made them strong, or to try and overcome a trauma from their past. But I'd say one of my favourite scenes in the entire movie is when they first all meet up again in the Chinese restaurant, because they're all laughing and joking and remembering the past, and it was just a good reflection of what they were like as kids. And then obviously horror ensues. They're all opening the little Chinese fortune cookies, and then they all suddenly get attacked by these little demon things. And as well, during this scene, they were all asking the question, where's Stanley? And it turned out that Stanley just couldn't hack it, and he just pretty much killed himself because he just couldn't face Pennywise again. And I did have a bit of an issue with this scene because at first I thought that he was just sitting in the bathtub and like he'd probably cut his own hand to try and remind himself of the oath that they all made. But as it turned out, he just killed himself. And I thought that, I mean, it wasn't the issue that he had killed himself, it was more of the presentation and the execution of how they did it. And I just pretty much thought, well, we're not going to see that character again, like he's pretty much pointless in this movie. But it was just really good how they kind of used him as a motivator to kind of like get the guys to actually come together and try and beat Pennywise. Because they all had their own individual memories of Stanley, which they used to kind of build themselves up and make themselves stronger. And pretty much just to remember the good old days when they were all friends. Now, the actual horror in the movie. First, the effects. The effects were absolutely brilliant. Their CGI was really top-notch, and I imagine they had quite a few practical effects as well, but there wasn't a single thing that looked cheap or lazy. It all just looked really good. Now, if you've watched any of the other reviews that I've done for horror movies, you'll know that I think jump scares are absolutely lame, and they're pretty much one of the worst things in horror movies, because they're not scary. All it is just to make a loud noise and it startles you a little bit. However, like the first It movie, I do give It Chapter 2 a pass on the jump scares, because they actually do play into the narrative of the story. Because obviously Pennywise is trying to scare them so he can make them more afraid, so he can feed off their fear and eventually eat them. So, you know, having jump scares in this movie makes sense. Because the scenes are more than just the initial boom loud noise. They actually focus on the scene and have like a monster or something chase them, or them deal with like a personal issue. You know, they actually do something with them. So in summary, that's why jump scares get a pass for this movie. As for the ending though, I was kind of mixed on it, because while I did like the effects in the scene, it was really well shot, it was really intense, I did think that it was kind of slightly anticlimactic the way they just kind of suddenly just beat him, because he's pretty much just winning all up until basically he's not. But still, I would say it doesn't necessarily take away from the intensity or the impact of the actual ending. And as well, another minor thing I did take issue with the final confrontation with Pennywise was the kind of flashing strobe lights that they had in the scene, because I find it makes it really hard to focus on the scene and you lose your immersion. Overall, guys, I really enjoyed this movie. It was definitely worth the 2-year wait, and it definitely delivered on everything that I wanted it to. The child and adult cast were brilliant. Bill Skarsgård was great as Pennywise again. The effects were brilliant. It was quite scary, but mostly eerie. And it was insanely shocking at loads of scenes as well. But the ultimate question is, how does It Chapter 2 compare to It Chapter 1? I would say that It Chapter 1 is the better movie. That's not to say that It Chapter 2 is bad. It's just I think It Chapter 1 did a better job of blending genres, because it was a coming-of-age story, it was partly a comedy, and I'd say it was scarier as well, and just overall had a bit more of a creepy atmosphere to it. But again, not take anything away from It Chapter 2. But honestly, I do like to think of these two movies as one whole long movie, because I think that is pretty much the best way to watch it. Because before watching It Chapter 2, we'd all watched It Chapter 1, because they did this double bill event at the Pictures, so we got to see It Chapter 1 in the IMAX, and then we got to see It Chapter 2 in IMAX as well, so, you know, it was a really good experience, and it made it feel like one long movie, even though it was like a 10-15 minute break in between the movies. So honestly, before watching It Chapter 2, I mean, obviously you've got to watch It Chapter 1, but I'd honestly say try and watch It Chapter 1 as close to It Chapter 2 as you can, because I guarantee you'll have a much better experience if you do that. But now, as for whether or not you guys should go and see it, I would absolutely, definitely recommend that you should go see this movie. Even if you're scared of clowns or you don't like horror movies, forget about it. This is just a great movie, and it was an absolutely brilliant cinema experience. Though, if you were kind of expecting it to be better than It Chapter 1, you may be a little bit disappointed, but if you just want to see a satisfying conclusion to this brilliant movie, then by all means, go watch this one in the cinemas, because I guarantee you'll have a good time with it. Okay guys, that's my review of It Chapter 2. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite Stephen King adaptation? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!